Yeah, before I present the guest of us today, before I present, we have, yeah, we have among the attendants, we have dear Prof, like I told you about this webinar, about this meeting. Yeah, this is the program of research, training, and mentorship program. So we have been having sessions like this with different mentors, of which you are among our mentor, and but for sure,
Hello.
yeah, as for the participants, obstetrics and gynecology, also a leader at, yeah, he's also a medical education where he teaches, yeah, gynecology and obstetrics, and he has played a critical role in improving research in Rwanda, in improving the health system through research. And yeah, most of these medical students look up to you. Some of them, they say you have had an impact, a very big impact on them. Some of them have already published papers. Some of them have been exposed to research through data collection and other sorts of exposure in research trainings. They have had trainings. So yeah, for sure, it is going to play a big part. Yeah, and yeah, before the presentation of Prof, maybe we can have the program coordinator, who is Jean Damour, to give us welcoming remarks. Yeah, Jean Damour, you can give us the welcoming remarks, and before we
Thank you.
start.
Thank you for having me. So
Yeah.
I am Jean Damour Nyonguru. I am a medical student starting the final year at the University of Rwanda. I'm also the coordinator of this research mentorship and training program. I just welcome the facilitator of today, Prof. Ruiz, and also the mentees who are joining. That I start with giving a brief introduction about the program. The program developed by MEDSAR and the UGHE Research Society to enhance the skills and knowledge of medical students in research during their undergraduate, as they share experience and work together to impact the health scientific world in Rwanda. So the program has students from the three medical schools in Rwanda. We have some who are joining from University of Rwanda, who are joining from UGHE, and others from Adventist School of Medicine. So it is a big pleasure for us to have the Prof to facilitate our session, following our previous sessions that we had, some physical and other online, as the mentees with their mentors are proposing their research proposals. This session will help them finalize them and also restructure them in a good way that can be developed into a nice research project. So the program is expected to last for 2 years. We are ending the first year. The last year of the program will be especially about implementing the research project developed by mentees and mentors. So it's a big pleasure to have you. I welcome you all, and also to Dr. Magnifique who joined. I wish you to enjoy the session and hope at the end we'll be having a good package. Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jean Damour. Yeah, for sure. I see this session is going to be interesting. We have medical doctors. We have our honorable guest, and yeah, I don't know, Eden, who is also the vice coordinator of the program. maybe for a few remarks, like 2 minutes. Then we can have the presentation from Prof. Then the questions will come later. Yeah, Eden, you're welcome. Hello, Eden. Is Eden Gatesi around? Yeah, she. Okay. Yeah, maybe we can go ahead. Yeah, it looks like she's not ready. Maybe she'll give the closing remarks. Thank you. So, Prof, you're welcome for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes, we can see the slides.
Okay. Okay, good. So let's start. And if you have any questions, you either can stop me on the slide or you can write them and ask afterwards. We're going to make it a very short so that you can chat so that I know what you're thinking. So let's start with a research proposal. And start by what is research so that everyone can be on board with what we are saying. So what is research? Now, we'll go straight to the definition. Research in general terms is a systematic investigation or systematic data collection in order to establish facts. That is definition. In order to establish facts or to reach a conclusion. So that is, if they ask you what research is, that is it. So what is its importance? There are several importance of research. One of them is to improve knowledge. When we systematically collect data, we improve knowledge. We also help to get latest information because research is discovery of knowledge, to know what has not been known before. And for doctors specifically is to operate on known standards, so to generate evidence-based practice. Whenever you are treating a patient, then you should know that you are using evidence-based practice. That is why we do research. We want to generate new knowledge so that our practice is informed by the data, by the evidence. So that is why we do research. So now from this one, then you know that if you don't do research, and if you don't read research, then you probably will get outdated within a very short time. There's a fancy saying I see here in one of our institutions, which says, if you don't count, you don't count. So let's start. Why should you do research, or where should you start? I meet very many young people, including old ones, who say, well, I want to do research. And I ask them, why do you want to do research? They usually have several reasons, but one of them, yeah, it feels fancy, like I published a paper, or I want to this and that, or I want to know this. So then the biggest challenge I found is that people don't know where to start. So where do you start with research? You start with interest. You can't do research in everything. You've got to show your interest. Where are you more interested? Is that in engineering? Is that in water sanitation? Is that in medicine? What type of medicine? Are you improving care? In which way? So you should know, and you should start from your interest. Where is your interest? And what is your interest? And why are you interested? Why are you interested in research? That motivation will drive you forward. And whenever things get tougher, you will keep going because you know the why of research. This is the impact. What difference is it going to make as opposed to not doing research? You want to do research because, and if you don't do it, something is going to miss. So that impact should also be very clear in your head, that if you go for that research, you are going to solve that problem. So here is how you should structure your research. I said we'll go straight to the point. There should be a title. If you want to go to write a proposal, you should have a title. What is it about? Is it finding out something or doing something? So you should have a title. We are going to explain more later. Then there should be something called the abstract. This is a very few 2 to 3 paragraphs describing your research. The abstract is a small summary of your project. And then you should have introduction. It should have an objective, and there should be methods of how you will do it, and then the study design. The major headings or titles, if I could say, of how you will structure your proposal. Okay, but how should the title be? There's a title, I like to tell people, it should be something very catchy. When I read it, I find it very interesting, and it tells me the whole story. A title means everything. If I read your title, I should know if I continue or not. The title should push me to read the next paragraph, so chapters, because the title tells me whether it is interesting or not. It should respect on the study area. Is it in gynecology? Is it in surgery? Is it in pediatrics? Or is it in malaria? Or is it in diabetes? The title should capture that. We're going to talk about the keywords. It should have main keywords. The other importance of title is search. When people search in the common search engines like Google Scholars, like PubMed, they should be able to capture your study. Why? Because it has searchable titles or keywords. So let's say if you want to study what causes diabetes in Rwanda, then you make sure that your title clearly states diabetes, states Rwanda, states causes. And then searches those key terms will be able to read your paper. Or if I wanted to know something, then I search and I should be able to see your title and your paper. Introduction. Then you start with introduction. This is the most important part, which states the background on the study topic. It gives a general overview of the topic. Usually, you start with a very important paragraph of program statement. What is the problem? So you start with a paragraph which states what is the problem. You describe it, you go to literature, you search widely. I usually recommend people to start worldwide, then you search in the region, then you search maybe Africa, then you search in the region, neighboring countries, then you search in your country, and you'll be able to come up with the problem. What is the problem? The other one, the next paragraph should always be what is known. What do we know about this problem? Then you should search and look everywhere. This is what we know about this problem. And then the next paragraph is the one that pushes you to do that, is what is not known. What don't we know? So what is not known should be the ones which goes towards your aims or your hypothesis. If you can't search any evidence of that, or if you can't search that's a problem, then that leads you to say, okay, your hypothesis is, and then that is the gap. That is the gap that you're going to answer. That is the gap in the literature. That is your problem. So that is very important. You state the problem, you say what is known, you say what is not known, then you say what you suspect, which is maybe equal to hypothesis, and then your objective. So this is not known, which comes to something like, this is why I want to find out this. Then it becomes your objective. So you identify the knowledge gap. Okay, but how do we set research question? A good research question should have several criteria, but we just picked these common ones. Is it feasible? Feasible, can you do it? Is it interesting? If I hear about it, is that very interesting to know? If I don't, then stop it. Is it new? Are you bringing new knowledge? Is it ethical or relevant? So after that, you generate your research question. So how should the feasible question be? Well, a feasible question, you should be able to say, can I do it? Do I have numbers? Can I get these cases of this disease? Are the numbers available where I am? Or is a disease that is very, very rare that doesn't even occur here, so it is not feasible? Although the research question is good, but if it is not feasible, then you will not be able to do it. You look at feasibility is expertise, technical expertise. I need to do that study. Do you have sufficient expertise? If it is something to do with cardiothoracic surgery, if it is something to do with neurosurgery, and you're not, you don't have any expertise in that field, you should think twice. Are you qualified to do that? The thing you see is affordability. Is it affordable? Do you have resources to do it? If that study requires a surgery, or if that study requires a very expensive equipment, do you have it? The other affordability is time. Do you have time to do that? Will it require a very few weeks, or for you to answer the question, maybe you need 10 years? Are you going to afford that? Manageable in that scope, you put in perspective. Also, is it fundable? Because you said you want to write a proposal. Some proposals are so big that you need to go and look for funding. The question, is it fundable? The potential funders, can they fund this question? Are they interested? So these are the questions you ask yourself. Is the question interesting? So if you state your research question and you say, well, this is what I want to study, the first question people will say, well, if you do it, and what? Yeah, find out that how many people do X, Y, Z, people like, and so. So you should make sure that is very interesting. The findings are interesting. If people don't say, well, if you find it or you don't find it, it doesn't make any difference, then it's not interesting enough. Then you also ask a question, is the question novel? Is that new? What new knowledge are you going to generate? Is that a very interesting thing, finding? Are you confirming something or are you refuting something? For example, existing knowledge. Maybe they said the best treatment of this condition is this, and you want to refute it because you have done it and you find it's not working. Then you say, well, I want to do research to confirm whether this method works or not. So you should know, are you confirming the knowledge? Are you refuting the knowledge? Is it going to lead to a new innovation? Are you going to change the practice? You should have all these questions answered in your question. Is it ethically sound and is it relevant? If you submit your proposal to ethics committee, are they going to approve? Do you know if they like that idea? Do you know if maybe if that is within your government's laws? Is that applicable? Do they like it or they don't even allow it? So is the question acceptable ethically? That you should know. Is it relevant and applicable in the local context? Are you going to do something that is a taboo that people in your area do not agree with? They want to respond properly. They don't talk about it, or it doesn't even exist. So that's a very, very important questioning you should give to yourself in order to test the research question. So after generating, now going through this, and you generate a research question, then you proceed, you make sure it is a good question, then you state your objectives. So then you say, okay, my aim now, or my objective is to measure this, or to do this, or to identify this, or to find out. I should be able to justify the problem, focus on the topic to answer the unknown. The objective should be SMART objective, like we say. The SMART is an abbreviation of the objective should be specific. Are they very specific, or is a vague objective? So that when you collect the data, we want to know what you're going to answer. You should make sure that every question matters. So it should be specific objective. It should be measurable. A measurable objective is an objective that you can quantify. You say a number, or even if it is qualitative, but it should be measurable. If you finish collecting this data, how are you going to answer? If it is measurable. Is it attainable? Is it achievable? Can you do it? Is it a doable something? Is it realistic or relevant or reasonable? Can you do it within the timeline? If you are a medical student and you embark on a project maybe for the end of your study, and you find for you to be able to collect realistic data, maybe the sample size will carry 5 years, like other research, big research project. Then you should know it's not time bound. I cannot finish this study within 1 year of study. So all these you should understand: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Then the what and why of the study. The objective will answer what is the study. It should indicate why the study is important. What is going to be solved? What gap it is filling? What new knowledge will be generated? All these should be mentioned. So what's your objectives? So we talked about introduction about the study. We said about hypothesis. Then you generate a research question. And we know how to generate a research question. Then we do objectives of the study. Why? What are the aims? Why do you want to do it? So you explain the why. And then you go to methods, which is like, this is how I will do it. And this is where I will do it. That is the methodology. I will go to CHK and I will collect this data to answer this question. If someone reads the previous one, should see that this one is answering the question, the how and the where of the study. How are you going to do it? You explain in details. I will collect data from children under 5. I will ask their names, their parents, where they come from, if they go to school, what condition they have, and every question should be able to answer your problem. Why are you going to do it? I will do it in Butaro and Ruhengeri from this period to that period. When describing your methodology, you should be as simple as possible. Use as simple language as possible. Break it to the smallest detail that even a beginner can replicate it. You describe the method that even if you're not there, someone can read your methods and go on the field and collect exactly the same data that you wanted to collect. You should have that level of details. Anyone who wants to replicate your study can see exactly what was your aim? What problem did you say there was? What aims did you have? And how did you do it to get this result? So that if someone goes back and replicates it somewhere, can get exactly what you got. And they can do exactly what you did. So after your introduction, you introduced us to the problem, that is, you showed us the gap in the knowledge, then you highlighted the research question, and then you stated your objective, which are very specific objectives, and they are very measurable. Then you do methods. The method is the whole methodology. It says how you will do it, where you will do it to get the results. Now the next step is about how. The how of the study will lead to the study design now. How are you going to collect those data? Now, depending on the problem, is when you decide on the study design. Study design is a different talk altogether. That if we go to different study designs, we will need another lecture, which is separate from this one. Different study designs, advantages of each study design, and so on. But now we will go quickly. Which study design that will answer your research question? You choose a design based on your research question. A general description of study design is they can be quantitative, or they can be qualitative, or they can be mixed of those. For this lecture, which is the first one, we will keep at least a very simple level of, for example, quantitative studies. It can be cross-sectional study, or cohort study design. I don't know if I can have time now, but we can maybe later, or someone else, to explain every study design. A cross-section is you go in a community or in an area and you collect data now. It represents what is happening now. A study design is that you collect data from a participant, you follow them over time, and you see the outcome. Let's say clinical trial, you give them medication and you follow the patient and you see the side effect of the medication. That is the cohort. You follow them over time. Yeah, which is like prospective. You go over time. You can compare this to a video as opposed to a camera, a picture. Cross-section is like a picture. It says what is there now. A cohort is like a video. It goes over time. Then you can also have retrospective studies, which is you go to the patient files or some records of something and you read what happened in the past. A case control, also you can see the outcome now and look back in the history and establish the exposure. Then you can also have randomized control trials, which is whereby we give a certain treatment at random, which is very, very controlled, and then monitor the outcome. The qualitative studies are those where you ask different things, but you can also have a mixture of qualitative and quantitative. But how exactly do you do that? How do you do which study design, and how you do sampling? Because you will never be able to do the whole population in the one. There's always a sample. But how do you do a sample? It has to be a representative sample, so that whenever you get your results, they can be easily generalizable to the general population. So sampling techniques are very many, and sample calculation is also another exercise, but you've got to calculate a sample size. How many people will I see? That will give a generalizable information to the whole group. You will also describe the site. Where am I going to do it? Is that going to be in the rural? Is the condition also in the urban? Is it in everywhere? So that I want to compare rural and urban. What about the settings? Am I doing it in town, maybe in the buses? Am I going in the hospital? Or I collect data from the market, and why? So this is a sampling technique. It has a very, there are several formulas now that we use, but it has to be a representative sample. So, but how do we do that? To collect the data, we have an abbreviation called the PICO, which is how do we collect the data? You've got to say the population. You say, I will collect data from women, but women who come from northern province. But in the northern province will come from Musanze. So the population, you've got to describe your patient population or your sample population. Now you say the number. If you say 100 people, but you say among these 100 people, from who? Is that from women? Is that from children? Is that from children of which district or from which sector? So population, you've got to describe exactly which population you're going to do that. Intervention, what exactly are you going to do? What investigation are you going to do? What exposure are you going to do? What are you going to test? And so on. Is there a control? Are you going to be comparing that exposure to another group? If you compare, what is the main group to compare? What is the alternative? And if you do that, what is the outcome? What do you intend to accomplish or to measure or to improve? How long will you follow this patient? And every point that we say here, it has to reflect your aims and objective. It has to answer. It has to say, this is why you need to do this. So now that you describe your sample and you say from who and you describe what intervention to what, where, then the other question, and then once you do that and what, then you describe the sampling techniques. Who is the, no, maybe women who are below 50 years old. Who will be excluded? Or women above 50 years? Or is that every woman or only women who are pregnant? Pregnant, only the first pregnancy. You've got to describe that. Eligibility criteria. You've got also to indicate the study tools. What are you going to use? Are you going to call them on phone and ask them questions? Do you find them in the hospital? Or you go to the market, or you visit them at their homes? Are you going to have a questionnaire and ask them, or do you have a recorder? Are you going to have a tablet? You've got to describe all these tools on how you're going to do it. If you do biological samples, how are you going to handle them? If you take blood, for example, if it is a disease, you want to measure the disease. How are you going to handle the blood samples or the urine or the stool or whichever? You've got to describe in your proposal. Then you say, I will collect fasting blood sugar, and I will collect it in the morning between 6 and 8, and I will store them in a freezer for how many hours, and I will test this, and this is why I do that. In the research proposal, you are also required to declare confidentiality. If you collect this data, how are you going to use it? Is this data secure? Are you doing it for your own interest or for science? If it is for science, how do you protect this data? Confidentiality is very, very key in research, especially in medical research. So you've got to have a section of confidentiality whereby you explain exactly what you're going to do with the data. We usually have to write a paragraph on de-identification. Should this data be leaked outside my computer, no one can associate them with the owner of the sample or the one I'm describing. So that is it for research. Now, in general, I will tell you that you go through introduction. We said about research question. You go through designing objectives, and you explain your methodology, and then you explain about your techniques, sampling techniques, what you're going to do. So in summary, as I go towards the end, maybe give you more time for questions. When you write a research proposal, make sure you have a very good title that says it all. And then you have introduction. In the introduction that has what is the problem? It states a problem. What do we know about the problem? What don't we know? Which is the gap now? Which generate a research question. You make sure that research questions are very, very clear, specific, are feasible, are interesting. We said this, novel, ethical, realistic. And then you also do you have a patient? Did you describe the patient or the population you're going to do? Or did you describe the intervention you want to do? Did you describe if there's a comparator or comparison? Did you describe your measurable outcome? That is a research question. Then the objective, make sure you set very, very clear objectives that are specific, that are measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, and so on. And you also have methodology. Your methods should say, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And where are you going to do it? So this is very, very important in research writing. I didn't include here abstract. Abstract is just a summary of all of this. This is my title. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. This is where we will do it. So that someone can read and know where this is interesting or not interesting. So I've got this simple summary of research process. You identify the problem. Yeah. What is the problem? Do you want to see the causes of why children die, or why children are malnourished, or any problem you have? You identify the problem. Then you go and review the literature. What is this problem known? Do we know everything? What causes this problem? Yeah, and then you come up with research question. If you know there is a lot of unknowns, then you design your research question and objective and hypothesis. So I think the causes of malnutrition is, and you say 1, 2, 3. And then after that, it will give you your study design. Yeah, after your research, and then you decide on the sampling technique and the methodologies here. Then you correct your data, you process the data, analyze them, and then you write a report. For the sake of today, since most of you are students, I did not go into data collection and discussion process and data analysis, since we are at the level of writing a proposal. When we go to doing now, which is data collection, data entry, data analysis, and generating conclusions, then we'll go to that and proceed from there. But for now, is how do you write a proposal so that it is acceptable either by your ethics or your supervisors or the funder, even if you want just to write a proposal not for academic achievement, but also for science. So this is very, very important. I think I will stop here and say thank you very much. But I want to remind you that, as we said from the beginning, when you have no facts, nothing has happened. Always remember facts. You cannot afford to go like in a bar and start stating things that you have no facts. You need evidence. And the evidence can be generated by data, quality data, corrected, analyzed, interpreted, and then you have evidence. If you have no scientific evidence, you have no proof. If someone says something, you said you have proof. Is there evidence to support that? As a scientist, if you need to advance knowledge and science, and you practice also your medical sciences as a researcher, one of the most important tool of research is to make sure you become a very strong clinician. You become a very strong clinician because of research, because you always up to date. And if you haven't done that research, at least you know how to read other people's research. And it will become a culture, and you will always use evidence-based medicine. So I think this is the end for writing a research proposal. I will stop here, and thank you very much. So you remember, if you don't count, and if you don't do research, if you have no evidence, then you know what it means. You don't count. Thank you very much. Questions? Any question?
There is a question in the chat box.
Okay, he says,
Thank you, Prof, for the very good presentation. My question is, how do you manage how do you manage it when you find that your project is being worked on by other researchers on exactly the same time?
then you stop.
You are also working on it.
Then you stop doing it, or you look for those people doing it, and you work together. But if they have started, yeah, then why should you do it? If you trust their methodology, then you should wait for their results. And there's no need to keep doing something someone else is doing. That is common in students, because they want to pick obvious ones, and other people also do the same. But if you find you are two different groups trying to answer the same question, I think one of them should stop. Any other question? Is there any other question?
I have a question. In the presentation you gave, you didn't. There is no section for the literature. If you do, all proposals need to have a literature review summary, or it can be summarized in the problem or in the introduction.
Introduction, all I wrote about what we know, what we don't know. That is the literature review. The assumption is that in every research you have to search the literature. So I never included that as a section on itself, because you can't escape it anyway. For every research proposal, you have to search for literature. So literature review is not a section on itself, because it's part of the whole process. That's why I said, if you you want to know what is known about the problem or what is not known about the problem, you get to answer that by literature review. You search from the literature and answer that question of what do we know or what don't we know. Yeah. Anything else?
There is one question in the chat box.
What I can ask is, the IRB will not issue approval for two similar research projects. Yes, exactly. If you find out your peer is working on the same topic, ask them if they have an ethical approval. Yeah, thank you very much, Magnifique. So the IRB is assuming they have a database whereby they will also look back if there's no duplication, but they cannot approve the same topic with the same methods.
So there is a question from Shaka asked, How can you estimate a sample that can be representative of the Rwandan population when working on hospitals?
There are several formulas to do that, but if you are working, for example, in a disease condition or any condition in general, the formulas will ask you after you set the questions, the prevalence of that disease and maybe in which age group and so on. Once you have those key questions, there will be a formula that will generate you the sample size. But all you need is the prevalence, then they can tell you what is the sample size. Sample size calculator are very many formulas, and almost all of them are free to use.
So another question from Giovanni is asked, what is the most interesting thing to you about the research area you are pursuing?
What is what?
What is the most interesting thing to you about the research area that you are pursuing?
Well, the most important thing is that I discover new knowledge that is not known by any other scientist. So it improves my practice. I get to have confidence in my clinical practice because I use evidence-based healthcare. So I think the satisfaction of having new knowledge is the most interesting things, or finding out the things that would solve people's problem. Let's say new medication or new methods of treating patients and so on. Yeah, is that okay?
Unless there is another question from the participants.
Was the talk clear? Do everyone understand?
Very clear on my side, on our side.
Okay. So anything else?
Yes, thank you, Prof. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so the talk was very nice. It was very concise and had all the information that you needed. Only if you could send this presentation to the email where the communication was passed from, that would be great.
If I can send what?
This presentation, this PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, to the email. Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Yes, my.
So are you interested in research? Hello, go ahead.
I think Magnifique want to talk something.
Yes, go ahead, Magnifique.
Oh, thank you so much, Prof. I think this was really great to all of us. I learned a lot, and I actually had sort of a challenge to medical students. Would you tell us what are you going to do after this? To me, this is good because I am doing as we speak, I'm actually working now on my research proposal for my fellowship, and I was working through the talk that Prof was talking about, reading through my objectives and see if they are smart, as Prof said. And I wanted to know, or mainly from the students' perspective, what are you guys going to do after this talk? And if you answer that, the next question, I think the best way to do this sort of like research training would be to get them to do working training. Like you come with an idea, and if Prof talks about getting smart objectives, you try to develop your smart objectives and you ask partner questions, because this can remain like a talk, a good talk, but when we don't actually get actions out of the talk becomes like any other lecture. So I feel like what I wanted to know, what are you going to do after this, and how are you going to keep this, and how this doesn't just be like any other nice, great talk we've had from any professor, and it does not get followed up with a concrete actions. Thank you.
I think Gloria can go on with answering the question. Gloria can answer the question, I think.
Who is that? Who can answer?
Gloria can answer the question.
Okay, Gloria, tell us. I think she's muted. Yeah? Anyone tell us? That was a general open question. Anyone can tell us what you think. How are you going to make use of this information before it expires?
Thank you, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am Benita, the director.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mentorship. Okay, Gloria is back. Thanks.
Yes, we can hear you. Maybe you continue. Gloria maybe has no internet. The one who had started talking.
Benedict can go on, or if not, I can go on with answering the question.
Yes.
So that was a nice question from Dr. Magnifique. Actually, the importance of this session was like the most of mentees are still in the steps of developing the research proposal, because in the program we have mentors who facilitate us in developing research projects. Like here in the meeting, we have one mentor who is Theogene. So at the end of this session, I, as the coordinator, I believe that the mentees, who, of course, I am also developing my proposals, they will find their projects that they can be a good research project to be implemented. So at the end of this session, maybe in a month or 2 months, we shall have a good research proposals from each mentor, each mentees. I don't know, from our previous assessment, we have seen that some are not in the proposals, the proposal development, but at the end of this session, they will be starting doing proposals. We expect that at the end of this month, we shall see a good outcome from this session. If our mentor can go in, Theogene, if you are in a good position to talk, can let us know what you think.
Yeah, let's hear from others.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and thanks, Prof, for the nice presentation. Yeah, if I can speak on behalf of maybe the team that I've been mentoring, I know this is going to be helpful because the team has been struggling to put together some proposal, like doing the literature review, structuring the research question. And most of the time when we meet, we almost do similar thing, like go through the details, review the work that they have been doing. And I believe that since that we're having this session, people are now going to put into practice what they have learned. And also, I'm sure that they have answered some of the questions they've been having. And it's not only working for only the team that I'm working with, but also to other members of the program. So I believe that most of these talks that we are having are not going to be left in vain, because we have people who are already practicing, who are already having this, interest of doing research, developing proposals, and having something out of the training. So I would even recommend that we can have so many of these talks so that people can keep refreshing the knowledge they have, and also, as engaging with the students at more advanced level, to the extent that we are able to know exactly where we are heading, and also refreshing what we do. So I would say, like, this is helpful, and as Maifik asked, we are going to make use of the information that you shared and add to what we have. For us, we recently we met as a team, and we are almost like restructuring we have like a drafty proposal. The first draft, we are just looking at aligning different parts of the proposal from the background, also meeting with the objectives, and then looking on the methodology, trying to see whether what we are writing is really answering the objectives that we have. So I'm sure that we are going to make use of this training. Yeah. I don't know if I'm able to answer the question well. But thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. I think, yes, you've answered the question, but as Prof told us, we need to be more specific and measurable and time bound. So maybe you need to get some baby steps and say probably the next month, everyone will have a topic, for example. It's not an easy thing we might think just like having a topic is easy, but it's very complicated. Like knowing what you need to do, asking you those questions and come up with a topic itself, it's a win. Then maybe next time you meet, you say, okay, in another 2 or 3 weeks, you've done your introduction, you've gone to know what are the ins and outs of your research, what is known, what has been done, like what Prof said, literature review. Then you give yourself another time and you say you're going to think about methodology. Like small steps, but sure, you know that you're in the right path. And the next time maybe you request Prof to come and talk to you, you've had like one can present about their research topic, and you ask him to comment on your research topic. In that sense, you get more valuable inputs and actionable inputs that can help you develop. I hear you can do it either through your mentorship program, or you can use other different helps that you can get. But in that sense, you work slowly because you're also busy with other things, but you are developing and building from each class or each presentation or each lecture you get. In that sense, you can say that in a year, you'll be able to get your research done. But if you want to do it in a month, it's definitely going to be not easy. But just like get simple steps, very small steps, but sure, you know that you're doing something. And we are 21. If we commit that in July 2024, we have 24 research projects that are going to be published, it will be an insane achievement. And each one of us can publish others. Like I can put you on my research, you can put me on yours, and we keep developing. And in a year, we have 20 peer-reviewed projects that are going to be published, or that are at least out there. We don't need to be very, very optimistic, but small steps, but sure. So just that what I wanted to tell you, to be smart, as Prof told us, we make sure that from now on, in a month, let's get a topic. It's a huge success if we can make sure that we have 21 topics in 1 month. Just saying, we can do as much as we want, but wanted us to be thinking in terms of what is the actionable thing we're going to do from now on. And thank you so much, Prof. It was really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
I think if I can jump in, just to.
Yeah, thank you, Prof.
Sorry.
Yeah, there is someone who asked a question from the chat on tips for developing fundable research projects.
Well, the fundable research project is like any other thing. Is like if you want to be presentable, when you're going to meet someone important, you dress very well, right? So for fundable project, you've got to make sure that the problem you are going to solve is appealing, is going to solve a problem, and the cost of a problem is big. That is what I can say now. And you've got to know which funder do I want? Where is the interest of the funder? What problem am I going to solve? So these are the key issues to always consider when writing a fundable project. You see if you can sell the idea and how much it is worth and what impact is going to bring. It's about the impact in most of the time. Anyone else?
Yeah, I hope.
There was someone who was going to say something else.
Yeah, I hope Shaka has been answered.
Okay. Anything else? Because of justice.
Thank you, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I had studied, I am Benit and I'm the director of mentorship. So we work directly with the mentees. So I wanted to assure Dr. Magnifique about what he advises us to do, like to take small steps at a time, that when we actually have a training about a specific topic, the mentees like the next few months are applying what we have learned. So we have, like, for instance, had a session about formulating a research question, and most of the mentees groups have now a research question, and the next step is now to know how can they draft a good proposal. Some are already working on that with their mentors, but then having a training together is going to have to make it efficient for everyone, for the groups to now work on the proposals, and anytime they can revisit the session, they can consult you, they can consult their mentors, and we believe that by the next maybe few months we are now having most of the groups having their research proposals ready. So when you have a training, it is not just to keep as a record or as knowledge, but we apply, we take it and put it into practice. We thank you for giving us this such wonderful session, which was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. So can we call it a day today?
Yeah, if there is no any other question.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Prof. We really appreciate the lecture and it has been interesting. Yeah, as most of the students, they had told me that they are traveling. They couldn't attend easily, but some of them tried their best. I know some, like Shadrach, who is also traveling, but he managed to attend. I think he's still in the bus, but he's attending. So we really appreciate the presence and for the lecture. Yeah, so we can call Eden for the closing remarks as we call it to an end.
Okay.
Yes, so thank you so much, Innocent, for coordinating this. And I would also like to express my gratitude for Professor Stephen RULISA for sharing us with his knowledge and helping us know more about the research proposal. And as Benith said, so this program is a stepwise process that started in January with the baby steps that you've been talking about. And so now what we needed was to like put everything together to get a research proposal. And that's actually what we got from your presentation, which is really highly appreciated. So from now on, we're going to use what we learned today to put everything together and to review our work that we've been doing so far since January to make sure that then the research proposal proposal are really eye-captivating, and they're smart, as you mentioned, and they're going to be able to formulate a really good research which we are interested in. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing us with this great research proposal training. So without further ado, I would like to call it a day and thank you, and also thank the mentees for attending. As Innocent said, some were traveling, but they made the time to join us here. So I hope we learned a lot from this, and I hope we're going to apply this in our next steps, which is formulating research proposal. And I hope for the next moves, we shall be reaching to Professor Stephen to help us review the work. And yeah, I would appreciate your view on what we learned, and hopefully the research proposal are going to be better from this session. Yes. So thank you so much. God bless you all. Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you.